It's hard to pretend it's over. They say time heals, but not every silence leads to forgetting. When something truly moves you, it's impossible to fake normalcy. No matter how much you try to keep your mind occupied, some things just remain. They linger in the body. They stay in the gestures. They even shape the way you think. Certain gazes reappear out of nowhere. Certain words resonate even after so much time. And without warning, that tightness comes. That memory feels so alive. There's nowhere to run. What was genuinely felt doesn't just disappear. It may fall silent, but it doesn't vanish. And deep down, you always know. When something has truly marked you, there's no going back. You can't pretend it didn't exist. When something touches you deeply, it doesn't fade away. They say everything passes, that you just need the right time, the right distractions, the right days. But it's not that simple, because some things don't obey time. Some feelings simply settle in, and no matter how much they aren't invited to stay, they remain. It's quiet at first. You don't notice it right away. It creeps in the way thoughts return to the same point without warning, in how the body reacts when certain memories resurface, in the futile resistance to avoid feeling that again. No one teaches you how to cope with what lingers when everything else should have faded away. When everything seems resolved on the outside, but inside, nothing is in order. This isn't just ordinary nostalgia. It's something else. It's a memory that doesn't hurt like a wound, but weighs like a presence, like something that still exists, even if it no longer does. And that's where the conflict begins. The body knows before the mind. There are signals that can't be explained. The rhythm of your breath changes. Your eyes fixate on a single point. The mind tries to move on, but the heart holds on by the ankle, preventing you from walking. There's something there, something that hasn't dissolved, and it repeats itself in small gestures, in almost invisible details, in the song that keeps playing, in the scent that appears out of nowhere, in the empty space that shouts louder than any noisy presence. It's in these moments that one realizes what was truly felt still lives somewhere. Trying to forget is just a way of remembering even more. The attempt to erase is a disguised form of reliving. Every time one struggles to forget, the memory resurfaces with more intensity. The silence that should bring peace becomes the stage for repetition. The dialogues revive. The scenes regain their color. The imagined touch still sends shivers down the spine, and a strange restlessness emerges. One doesn't want to return, but at the same time, one doesn't know how to move forward. The middle ground becomes a prison. The world keeps going, but something has stopped inside. People carry on. The commitments continue. Life demands answers, smiles, decisions. But there's a part that remains stuck in the past. It's not emotional laziness. It's not attachment. It's something that's hard to explain easily. It's as if a part had been ripped away and placed in suspension, as if something had been interrupted before its time. And deep down, everything knows that the story hasn't truly ended. One can pretend to be normal. One can adapt, keep busy, convince oneself. But there's an internal place where that presence still exists, a corner where the name is still heard in silence. Some feelings don't allow for substitution. Others may come along. Other touches, other conversations, but it doesn't help. When something has been real, intimate, deep, nothing that comes after seems sufficient. Not because other people aren't good, but because what has been lived has left a mark that alters perception. Nothing is the same anymore. Nothing touches the same way. It's not longing for the other person. It's longing for who one became with the other. And that version of oneself, which only existed in that connection, that indeed is what is missed. There's a breaking point that no one sees. The people around don't notice. The eyes remain the same. The voice responds as always. The behavior even masks it. But inside something changed. Something that has no name yet carries weight. Here it's the point where feeling surpasses the limit of what can be endured, where affection has gone too far to return to its original state, and where absence has become more present than any company. This is the point where you are no longer the same. Even if everything seems the same, talking doesn't help. Staying silent doesn't either. There comes a moment when nothing resolves anything. Not expressing it, not holding it in, because it's no longer about expression, it's about living with what has been felt. It's like walking around with a memory in your chest, without it demanding space. but also without allowing it to be pushed out. It's there, silent, alive. And with each new attempt at life, at overcoming, at starting over, it resurfaces, not as an obstacle, but as a reminder that not everything concludes when you want it to. Some things persist even without permission. What was felt shaped you. It's no longer about trying to reclaim what was. There's no desire to repeat the past, but there's also no denying the impact. Some experiences break, others transform, and there are those that do both. When something has touched you deeply, you cannot return to being as you were before. You don't love the same way. You don't trust the same way. You don't give yourself with the same lightness. There's a part that has become cautious, another that has become too open. And together these parts create a new and more real version of oneself. But this new version also carries the weight of what has been felt. And no matter how much you move forward, there's a piece of memory that walks alongside. Pretending it didn't exist is violence against your own history. Ignoring what has been felt is self-harm. It's an emotional amputation. It's not weakness to feel. It's not fragility to acknowledge that something still pulses inside. Society teaches us to turn the page, to bury what hurts, to build emotional walls. But the truth is that feeling deeply is a testament to wholeness. Only those who have been whole can feel so much, and that should not be erased. Affective memory doesn't ask for permission to come back. It returns. At the most inopportune times, during a shower, in the middle of an unrelated conversation, on the way home, in the scent of something, in a phrase spoken by someone else, and there it is, present, whole, silently screaming. You can't expel what still resides. You don't close the door on affection as if it were a button, because where there was truth, there is permanence. And when you've experienced something deeply, even absence continues to say a lot. Time doesn't heal. Time teaches you to coexist. Hoping everything will just pass is emotional naivety. What time does is provide tools. It teaches you to breathe with the weight. It teaches you to walk with the memory. It teaches you to love again, even with scars, but forget? No. Forgetting is an illusion. What is true remains. No matter how much time passes, no matter who comes next, no matter how much you try to get over it, it remains. And it's at this point that everything is revealed, when there are no more disguises, when the body has given up pretending that everything is fine, when even silence seems tired of keeping secrets. That's when you understand. What truly touched you doesn't leave. It doesn't dissolve. It can't be replaced. You learn to coexist, to recognize, to respect what remains, because ignoring is to insist on the pain. But acceptance transforms what hurts into something that builds. It's not about living in the past, but about honoring what the past has done to the present. Because in the end, it's this: what truly touched continues to touch. Even when you pretend indifference, even when everything around you demands that you move on, even when your gaze gets used to new landscapes, new faces, new voices, it remains there, making no fuss, but also not retreating, because what leaves a mark doesn't need to shout. It just stays, subtle yet constant, like a background that never completely silences. And the cruelest, or perhaps the most honest realization, is that this doesn't depend on choice. It's not a matter of wanting or not wanting, it just is. There's no revenge possible against what one feels. You can run away. You can try to fill every internal space with external noise. You might even wish for time to erase it, for new stories to bury the old ones. But what was real always finds a way to survive. In the subtext, in the absence of explanations, in the void that no one else fills. It's pointless to create versions of yourself to please the world. It's pointless to pretend to be strong. It's pointless to say it's over when everything inside you still carries traces of what was felt. Because the body knows, memory knows, and above all, the silence knows. When you touch deeply, you transform the place. Those who were there left a mark, in the way you listen, in the time between one response and another, in the type of questions you didn't ask before. You've changed, even without wanting to, even while trying to resist. And you can't go back to the previous version. There's a kind of feeling that doesn't just hit, it reconfigures, and from that point on everything is new, even what seems the same. Pretending to be light is an unbearable weight, living as if there were no past, smiling as if there were no shadow, saying everything is fine when, inside, nothing makes sense like it used to. It's exhausting. The effort to maintain appearances takes more energy than any overt suffering. And the internal pressure to move on becomes a prison disguised as freedom. So no, it's not weakness to admit there are still feelings. It's strength, of the most brutal kind. Because only those who feel deeply know what it's like to carry a world inside and keep walking as if it were light. What remains shapes what is yet to come. It's not about being stuck in what has passed. It's more complex, it's more honest, it's knowing that bond, that touch, that moment influenced everything that will come after. Not in a limiting way, but as a foundation. Because once you've felt something real, you no longer accept the superficial. After giving your all, the shallow becomes exhausting. Once something is truly seen, the ordinary becomes unsettling. And gradually it becomes clear. It's not about reclaiming what was lost. It's about not betraying what it awakened. The problem was never the end. It was the impact. What destroys isn't the conclusion. It's what remains afterward. It's what couldn't fit into the goodbye. What was left unsaid. What lingers in the air like a story that doesn't end, but also doesn't continue. That's the real discomfort. The feeling that something is suspended, that there was too much truth to simply be left behind. And this, no one teaches how to handle. It's possible to move on, but it's not possible to forget. You carry on, there's no choice. But moving on doesn't erase. Life does move forward, yes, but it moves along with what remains, with what left a mark, with what changed the course. And no matter how much you try to deny it, there's always an internal point of return. A place you return to in silence. Even if just for seconds, even if only in thought. That place doesn't disappear, it doesn't weaken. It just learns to coexist with the absence of what once was a total presence. There's no antidote for what was real. Therapy helps, time helps, distance helps, but none of these erase, because what was truly lived doesn't need to be present to keep existing. Memory doesn't depend on proximity. Impact doesn't require contact. There's a permanence that defies any logic. And once felt, it's never forgotten. And then after everything, what remains? What remains is silence. What remains is the weight. What remains is the certainty that what was felt still lives, even without being named, even without being spoken. And above all, what remains is the awareness that what touched the intimate never completely disappears. Because the body might carry on, but the emotional memory, that stays, forever. There's no real end when something remains alive inside. It may seem over on the outside, new stories, routines resumed, a firm voice when speaking the name. But on the inside it still pulses, not like before, not with urgency, but with consistency. And that consistency is exhausting. It's exhausting because no one talks about it anymore. It's exhausting because there's no one to share with. It's exhausting because the world demands you to move on while everything inside still throbs in silence. Emotional memory doesn't need photos or old messages. It's physical. It's there, in the shiver that comes out of nowhere. In the closing of eyes when that song plays. In the desire to go back without knowing exactly where. It's not longing for the person. It's for the impact, for what was experienced together, for what can't be found anywhere anymore. And this hurts in a quiet way. It's a kind of pain that doesn't bleed, but consumes. That isn't screamed, but is carried. And the cruelest part, it's involuntary. No one chooses to remember. Memory chooses. And when it comes, it takes everything. It takes the heart. It takes the thoughts. It even takes the present. Because no matter how much life has moved on, there's always a part that stayed back there. In a specific gesture, in a last phrase, in a look that said more than any word. And the world keeps expecting efficiency, focus, rationality. But how can you pretend to be precise when inside everything continues to be an echo? It's easy to judge those who feel too much. It's easy to point fingers and call fragile those who are still touched by something that should have passed. But only those who have been invaded by a true presence understand what it's like to live with this absence that doesn't leave. The absence of a deep bond doesn't leave a void. It leaves noise. It leaves residue. It leaves doubt. Doubt about what was, about what still is, about how far that shaped everything that came after. And even when you find another smile, another embrace, another touch, the comparison is inevitable, even when you don't want it, even when you try to avoid it, because after something that marks, the new is always observed with wounded eyes, and nothing else is given lightly. There is always a piece of yourself that remains, reserved, cautious, not out of cowardice but as a consequence. And it cannot be explained, it cannot be justified, it can only be felt. The truth is, there are absences that continue writing within us, even after the final period. They keep dictating the tone of our feelings, the timing of our commitments, the intensity of our gestures. And that's when you realize what seemed to have ended never really left. It simply changed form. It stopped being a concrete presence and became a fixed memory. And that memory, unlike presence, offers no reprieve. It doesn't provide explanation. It doesn't give second chances. It only repeats what was as it was, without any relief. And it is at this point that many people get lost, because we expect to forget, when in reality the only possible path is to accept that certain marks don't fade, they don't heal, they don't disappear, they remain, not as an open wound, but as part of the structure, like an internal wall where everything new also leans against. And that's why everything changes. The way we feel changes. What we expect changes. What we tolerate changes. Even the way we protect ourselves changes. Because once something has truly touched you, you can no longer feel lightly. If this resonated with you, share it, comment on what you felt, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel.